You've just joined the Prepper Broadcasting Network, where we promote self-reliance and independence. The views and opinions expressed are strictly those of the host or their guests. Visit us in the interactive chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite. Its coast alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash my way is barred and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit card. Mr. Banker, can't you see?
Welcome, Golf Strikers. This is Tom. And I would like to thank you for tuning in to our weekly Libertarian Talk Show, where we discuss not only the problems of today, but also solutions. If you're listening to this show on Blog Talk or any other website that carries our player, you can also listen and join us in our chat room at prepperbroadcasting.com. About halfway down the page, you'll find the player, and right below that, you'll find the chat room. Just enter your username and click Connect. If you have questions or comments during tonight's broadcast, the call-in number to get on the air is 1-347-202-0228. After you've connected, remember to press 1 so that our producer can see that you want to be on the air. Don't be afraid to call in. It's really easy, just like talking to an old friend on the phone. And don't worry, we don't bite. Anyway, if you're calling in, give the producer your name and then listen in. We'll start taking questions and comments after the break, probably in about 30 minutes or so. So if you're listening on the air, please be patient, but do remember to push 1. Anyway, tonight we're going to be bringing on a couple of our previous guests from a previous discussion we had, Lives Matter movement, the violence, and what can be done about it. We'll also talk about some of the root causes of the racial divisions in this country and how possibly minorities can share in and be a part of the American dream. Anyway, I've also got another guest on who's be coming up in a few minutes. His name's Jason Charles, and he started the New York City Preppers meetup group, and he was quite successful in growing that group and been on a couple of the reality shows and some news broadcasts, so he'll give us some tips on how to start up a meetup group. But first I'm going to bring on Eric. Eric has something. Eric was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he has something that he'd like to share, that he'd like to read to us. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today, Tom?
Good. So if we could start out, could you first, refresh everybody who you are and what you're about, and how you got interested in this movement, and then share with us what you have.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Eric Clayton, and I'm a black conservative Republican from the Seattle area, and I was involved on Tom's last show, Black Lives Matter, and we just started talking about the problems that some of the black people are having, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, and how we could get probably more whites in America involved. And so I decided to do a little bit of research, and I looked around to see if there were any programs in place that could help, with this cause. And it looks like there's one in Peoria where it's a minority organization that goes out and helps other minorities lift themselves up so they can become better business owners. I reached out to them to try to see if I could get them to come on the show, and I was not successful. My Brother's Keeper is another one where President Obama, I think, had something to do with putting this together, and all I got from them was just some kind of just form email that basically did not address, coming on the show. And the last was a lawyer. He's a white lawyer that was helping out blacks get into the legal arena, and apparently was pretty successful according to his website. But I reached out to him, and still no response. So, I just don't know if that no response was on purpose or they have an email bag that's full. But I just started really thinking about the problem. I just thought to myself, is there a reluctance for blacks to accept white help? So I just kind of wrote this. I call it Wounded America. It is time for America to heal the wounds of black people caused by the wicked institution of slavery. But there's one big problem. The wounded party doesn't want to be healed. The constant transfusion of social welfare, goodies, and handouts that have resulted from white guilt, white patronization, and black complacency is pacifier enough for the black community. See, the attitude is, you wounded me, now you owe me. Let's face it, white America. Black America will always be your dependent, will always be complaining about what the white man should be and is not doing for them, rather than what they can be doing for themselves. The black community wants to hold white America responsible for their problems and will not offer them available solutions to strive for. And some white Americans could care less if achievable solutions are offered. Overall, the black community sometimes acts like that 30-year-old kid who has forever enrolled in secondary education or who just can't give up the security or comfort of living free of charge in your basement. Any mentoring or job programs that can be started by white America to lift blacks out of poverty will often be unsuccessful because only a few blacks will participate at the risk of pandering to the white man. But isn't taking tax money supplied by mostly white taxpayers the same thing? There needs to be a willingness to participate in the American dream, to actively embrace and believe in the grand experiment of democracy and a free republic, to be a part of an actual melting pot and be Americans first and foremost. And white Americans need to let them in and not make them feel that they are inferior and part of a separate nation. I am aware that blacks were brought here as slaves against their will. I am aware that blacks were mistreated, beaten, and killed by evil white slave owners. I am aware that evil whites found a way via the Ku Klux Klan and Jim Crow to rob blacks of their freedoms they gained through emancipation. I am aware that most of white Americans, while not physically participating in the violence against blacks aided and abetted the vile acts by their complacency displayed by their inaction against the perpetrators of hate. I am aware that even today, because of widely held stereotypes about black people by white people, that black people are virtually ostracized from being active and willing participants in society. We have a scab that needs to be healed. Both black and white Americans need to stop picking at the scab, opening up the old wounds and pouring salt into them. These wounds need to be allowed to heal and heal quickly. We need to get things put together the right way and made healthy, not just for black lives, not just for white lives, not just for red lives, and not just for yellow lives, but we need to fix it for the lives of the race that really matters, the human race.
Yeah, I really like that. We talked about in the last show that I did with you and Alex about what I believe some of the root causes for these problems. And, I put most, not all of it, but I put most of this on the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party, since the beginning of this country, was the party of slavery. The Democratic Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party was the party of Jim Crow laws, the party of they're the party of the IRS. They're the party of the Federal Reserve. They're the party of these internment camps. All throughout our nation's history, the Democratic Party has always been on the side of oppression, whether it's by race or by society as a whole. And then when I look at what they're doing now, and this started happening, well, as far as the welfare, social welfare, that started in the 30s when the Democrats started realizing, hey, you know, we need to buy more votes here with the social welfare. That's what we got to do because we're losing. All right, but then after they got their rears handed to them in the civil rights era, you know, it was the Republicans that fought for the civil rights and got the civil rights. It was the Democrats that opposed it, and they got their butts handed to them. And it was after that point that they realized that they were going to forever lose their position in government as long as they continued to oppose minorities. So they started changing, and they started actually not helping blacks get ahead and become independent. They started, their way of helping is by giving, you know, taking from one person through taxes and giving to minorities through social welfare. They started pandering to the minority vote and buying that minority vote. And it's to this day, like, you know, we said before, is, you know, you show me a ghetto, I'll show you a city government that's run by Democrats. Every time.
Absolutely.
Every time. And so so that's what we're here to discuss is how do we fix this? How do we change that? You know, you and I talked about meetup groups and stuff. You know, and we've got had a lot of success in the prepper movement doing meetup groups and helping people set up meetup groups across the country. Probably one of the more successful groups that I think, as far as I know of around, is the New York City preppers. That you know, Jason Charles from New York City got this group up and running. It seems to have done well. So I'd like to bring Jason on and get your thoughts on what we're discussing and how you have handled organizing the preppers group and how we might apply that to creating business opportunities for minorities.
First of all, thank you for having me on. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yes. Starting the group was, first of all, let me first start out by saying I didn't start the group. It was started by a young female. Life became too busy, and then she handed it over to me. And then, you know, I took over from there. It's hard to run a group in a city like this where you have so many different interests. And people here in the city, for the most part, are not concerned with emergency preparedness until something happens. We saw a big jump in subscribers or preppers back in Hurricane Irene and Sandy. And ever since there, every time something small happens or, you know, it's a terror attack or a mass shooting, we get a couple more people. So for the most part, it's you know, it's people reacting to something instead of just joining because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So it's more about finding ways to do that public outreach and finding ways to reach people before the problems happen.
Right.
But I think, you know, this topic's a little bit different than, you know, disaster preparedness is what I think comes to a lot of people's mind when they're talking about preppers. But I'm wondering how we can apply the concept of meetup groups, basically to the business world, to bring not just minorities but anyone in a ghetto area, in a poor neighborhood, urban areas, how to bring those people into the business world and to give them opportunities in careers, jobs, education, starting their own businesses. and I'm wondering how we can apply some of the, ideas of starting a meetup group to that, because, as you mentioned, people weren't joining until a disaster already happened. I kind of see that this problem that we have with poverty in America is a disaster that's ongoing right now. So I think if we can get people to see that, maybe we can get them to start participating in groups that address that.
Right. Meetup does have its can help somebody start a business or give them the tools they need, to start a business. The first thing that Meetup gives you once you start the group is it gives you responsibility. And I think that's where a lot of the problems we have in, I'm going to say black communities or poorer communities, is that there's no responsibility. So therefore, they blame their actions on whatever it might be on the next person. So when you run a group like this, if an event doesn't go well or something happens at an event or argument breaks out, I will blame that on myself for X, Y, and Z reasons, letting it happen or letting it get away. It teaches you that you have to accept whatever might happen with your business, good or bad, and that's first and foremost. Secondly, it gives you a sense of learning how to deal with people, which again, in the black community, for the most part that I've seen, we don't know how to deal with one another. It's sort of weird for me to talk about because it's hard for me to explain without actually showing you how. But for example, blacks in a community like, let's say, where I live today in Hall, for the most part, you have your different groups of blacks. You have blacks at work, and those are the blacks who usually get along. You have those who sit on the corner all day, and they make fun of those who go to work. Meetup gives you that responsibility on how to deal with different people like that. So I get different people in the group all the time, and I have to be adaptable to each person I meet, which is very trying at times, but that's what it teaches you. So learning how to do that, you could bring that to a community, a poor community, and learn how to deal with different people and inspire them, if you will, to do the right things, get off their behinds, get a job, not stand on the corner, don't make fun of this guy going to work. Those are the things that Meetup can teach. As far as financially, if you have a business or a Meetup group where you're dealing with money, it's on a smaller scale. I mean, it teaches you respect for money and how to be honest, right? Don't overcharge. Don't make extra money and then not give it back to the group, via like a contest or something. I learned a lot with running a group like this.
I'm of the believing that if you build it, they'll come. So I think if we've got these problems and issues in different communities, if somebody starts a meetup group to address those problems, I think people are naturally going to start joining. So I think really what needs to happen is to find people that are natural leaders, the kind of people that are going to go to work no matter how many people are making fun of them for going to work. I think we need to find those kind of people to take charge of starting groups like this, and then I think other people will just start to follow and start to come. And Eric's been researching some of this about, the different groups that he reached out to, possibilities of starting groups. What other ideas have you come up with, Eric?
Well, one thing, it's good to if we can ever get those groups that I reached out to that I mentioned earlier to respond to it, then, there could be a foundation there to build on. However, there's another thing that I'd like to mention. I don't know if you ever heard of a book called Black and White Styles and Conflict by Thomas Coachman. open, and I'm reading this book, and he's a guy that's kind of a diversity specialist. He found out that blacks and whites, even though they think in certain situations, they can be in a situation and they think they're communicating on a level field in that they are seeing the situation the same way. Blacks and whites communicate in a different way. There's certain things when they're said or done that blacks kind of react differently to. Like, say, for instance, he said there's a situation where blacks may be, discussing something, and they may get kind of loud and boisterous about it, and maybe the white there may think of it as, this is almost, verging on violence, and it's really not. Basically, it's they're active competitors, and they're trying to convince each other, so it hasn't gotten into a fight, but it sounds like a fight, whereas white people are very reserved, and they think, oh, wow, this is something I just want to be quiet about because it's really so escalated. So basically what I'm saying is I think that people that get involved, that go into the black neighborhoods, that want to help out, they have to get some kind of training so they can understand the black language, the black culture, so that what they engage black people about these jobs and everything is not misinterpreted. That's the danger right there, because once you get on that ground where you're talking apples and they're talking oranges, and you don't know that you're talking different fruits, that's where you get into a problem, a real problem.
Uh-huh.
So that's really all I have. I don't know exactly, how to set it up. I was really hoping to get feedback from those people that I reached out to, but I didn't. But like I emphasized, the communication is really, really important. I'd like to reach out to this guy that went to SIP.
I talked to you a little bit about this before, and I see a couple of problems and I've run into it myself when dealing with other organizations and trying to network and that sort of thing. It's a couple of different things. One, if it's like a nonprofit or an NGO that is, giving people aid of some sort, to them that's job security. It's, give a man a fish, and that man's going to be back the next day for another fish. And so if you teach somebody how to, if you come along and say, hey, I want to teach people how to become independent and be their own man and take care of themselves, well, that's taking away that job security from that nonprofit organization. And then the other thing is, even if it's another organization that is trying to teach people how to become independent, and you come along and say, hey, let's network together and see what we can do to combine forces and really help this along, well, then a lot of groups will see that as competition. And, it's the same thing in the nonprofit world as it is in the business world, is people just have this hard time wanting to work with their competitors. I see this really big time in the Patriot movement with all the, you look on the web and there's gazillions of Patriot websites, Second Amendment websites, conservative websites, and they really don't want to work together because that's their competition. And so it makes it real hard to network. And, I don't know really the way to do it. I mean, I'm thinking we got to do something to start up some groups, find some people willing to take the reins and be leaders, and just let them see if they can do it.
Yeah, and there's a stigma of being successful in the white man's world. It's almost like when you're black, if you're like a Colin Powell or Condoleezza Rice, and in the white realm of things, the mainstream, you are very successful. Your credentials are just fantastic. But it's something about the black neighborhood, the people that we're trying to help, you are looked at as a sellout. So basically, it's almost like a lot of them that would like to go there don't want to be sellouts, so they basically will go to, maybe selling drugs. Some of them may go to other kind of means of being successful. Maybe they might hope for a rap music record contract or something like that, maybe go and play in NBA. But basically, it's almost like this impediment. It's like, no, I can't suck up to the white man. I can't suck up his ways, I gotta be a real black, and it's something about being successful that is anti-black, and I don't get it. I mean, because I'm a black man that's been in the industry for 35 years. There's hardly any black OSP engineers, telecommunication OSP engineers, and I've gotten along with my coworkers just fine as long as I've done my job. I've never had problems, so I don't get it. I feel like I'm part of my own little mini melting pot. I feel like, I'm a guy that is, when you look it up, I'm just a textbook example of a guy that actually decided, hey, I'm just going to pull myself up by my bootstraps. Sure, I'm different from a lot of people I work with, but I right now know them as, John and Bob, and we're just guys that do jobs. I'm not old black Eric that causing problems or anything like that. I'm doing my job, and I just can't see why I can't do that regardless of what color they are.
Yeah. We got about 3 minutes before we got to take a hard break here. I want to get, real quick, Jason's thoughts for the rest of these 3 minutes. And then after the break, Dave has a question. Hold on, Dave. I'd like to hear what you have to say. And then, I can tell we've got several callers that are listening in. If any of you have comments, I encourage you to dial 1, press the 1 button so that our producer knows that you want to contribute a comment. Also, for those of you who are listening via the chat room or online, our phone number is 347-202-0228. Before we go to the break, you got any comments to add, Jason?
It's going back to, yes, I actually do, sorry. It's going back to people getting along. That's the other thing, too. We have a hard problem, as I think it's people. Never mind color, just people getting along, getting together, trying to make it work. Like you said earlier, we have a lot of these Oath Keepers, AP3. There's so many patriot groups that want to fight with one another instead of getting along. And they're all saying the same thing, but they just don't want to sit there and work together and move forward. There were a couple of purple groups here in the city. I tried to reach out to a couple of them, and they just didn't want to bother, because no one wanted to meet in the middle and negotiate. I think that's the problem with us as people. Now, as far as the black community goes, it's bad because you want to help. You want to sit there, you want to start a group, you want to get people off their feet, you want to give them jobs, you want to give them skills to get the jobs, but they don't want to come. They just want to hand it to them the easy way. The other problem is everybody else that I know, young kids, they want to be a basketball star or a rapper. They want that big money, and they want it fast. They don't want to work for it. And I'm not sitting here by any means saying that rappers and ball players don't work for it, but they want the big money. They don't want to be the firefighter, or the cop, or the doctor, or the lawyer. They want those millions, and they want it now. And I think to change that, we have to get into the kids' heads a little earlier. Sit there and have them listen to Young Thug or watch Atlanta hip hop. We have to educate them that you're going to get what you deserve by how you present yourself through life. And I think that's the first problem that needs to be addressed.
I think when I was talking privately on the phone yesterday with Eric, one of the things he brought up was we really need to take back the schools. And so we're going to take a quick break here. After the break, I'm going to bring on Dave, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about how it might be possible to take back the schools. So let's take a short word from our sponsors.
Hey, I'm Joe Alton, MD. I'm here to remind you that disasters can happen anytime, anywhere, and you need to know what to do in an emergency. The new 2016 third edition of the Survival Medicine Handbook is the essential guide for when medical help is not on the way. The Survival Medicine Handbook covers every issue you'll face in times of trouble, and it's all in plain English. Get the Survival Medicine Handbook at Amazon.com. I guarantee one day you'll be glad you did.
TheWonderMill.com, the best grain mills on the market, with the ability to mill several items that many grain mills will not. There are 2 grain mills to choose from. The Wonder Mill Electric. It's fast and gives you a vast variety of items it can grind. The Wonder Junior Hand Grain Mill can grind a wide variety of things that even some of the most expensive hand grain mills cannot, including oily grains, nuts, and seeds. Learn more about the most resourceful tool that you may ever own. See all the exciting things that Wonder Mill can do for you and what you eat at thewondermill.com.
We have exciting news. You can now afford to have your own freeze dryer. That's right, for the first time ever, it's possible to have a freeze dryer in your home. It was invented right here in America by Harvest Right. With this new appliance, you can freeze dry your own food and it will last 25 years. Imagine freeze drying fruit, vegetables, meat, and your own homemade meals. It's as easy to use as a microwave. Learn more about this amazing home freeze dryer at harvestright.com. Again, that's harvestright.com.
Welcome back, Golf Strikers. This is Tom. I've got Eric and Jason on with me. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, racial division in America, and how minorities might be able to participate in the American dream and become successful. I want to bring Dave on. Dave has a question for us. How you doing, Dave?
Doing well. How are you doing, Tom?
Good. How's it going? What do you want to add to the discussion?
I just wanted to ask how these guys may feel about how the war on drugs has affected the black community and how, if any, affected their relationship with the police.
Eric or Jason, you have answer for that.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
I missed the question.
Oh, sorry. How the war on drugs, how it may have affected the black community, not necessarily drugs themselves, but the war on them, the fact that they're illegal, and how that may have affected their relationship with the police.
Ooh. That's a toughie. I'm not sure that I can answer that. I may have to defer to Jason on that.
Okay. First of all, there is no war on drugs. I have to start out by saying that. Police relations in the black community with this drug problem we're having, it's bad. I mean, you come to a neighborhood like mine, and you go to Washington Heights. And we're talking about New York. Sorry, talking about New York. The drug ring is rampant here in the city. I just learned that today, talking to somebody who's in the actual law enforcement field. And cops, the problem is cops. Listen, a lot of cops, when they first start the job, for the ones I've known, they went in with the purpose of actually doing what the job was to do, was to help people. So they come out to from wherever they live, they come to the city, and they have this in their heart that they're going to help the community that they're serving. But day in and day out, they run into guys who they pull over and they're pulling weed, cocaine, or whatever out of their pockets. The relationship between cops and the black community or Spanish community is sort of damaged by the whole so-called war on drugs, because this is where it is. Now, keep in mind, we're not bringing the drugs in to the country, right? It's not a black dude. It's not a Spanish dude. It's whoever in a higher position. But now that they trickle down to us, these guys out here, whoever they are, whichever gang you name, they're dealing in drugs. And cops, they can't look at me walking in the street and go, "Oh, he doesn't have drugs," or he does. They assume, for the most part, not all of them, but a lot of cops assume for the most part that most black guys in the streets are carrying drugs. Most Spanish guys in the streets are carrying drugs. And they just don't know how to approach it without being, called a racist and everything else. It's a bad problem, and it sparks a lot of issues because they just assume that everybody is carrying, not everybody, but a lot of people are carrying stuff on. But this also goes to the way you dress, right? I dress a certain way, right? So for the most part, a cop will look at me and go, okay, this guy, he doesn't have, he's not holding or have a weapon on him because I dress with shorts and a T-shirt all year long. So when the winter comes around, the only thing I'm wearing it might be a hoodie. But here, you got guys wearing, a ton of clothing in the summertime, and those are the guys who are holding weed or a weapon of some kind. And when they get stopped, they're screaming, police brutality. Meanwhile, they're actually sitting on a corner doing what they said they weren't doing,
I think the whole war on drugs is they're not getting at the root cause of the problem, and kind of like fighting fire with fire. I don't think they're, like you said, there's not a war on drugs. I think it's a reaction rather than a proactive approach to solving the drug problem. We're not stopping it at the border where they come in, and we're not solving the problems that get people on drugs to begin with. It's expecting the police to clean it up in the streets when it shouldn't even make it to the streets in the first place.
That's the other problem with the whole drugs, the war on drugs, right? Not for nothing, but the FBI, CIA, ATF, they know where every last drug field on this planet is, right? They know where all the opiate fields is, where all the cocaine coca leaf fields are. They know where all the drugs are being grown. They know where they're being manufactured, right? So if you want a real war on drugs, then you have to actually step the game up and, ask these countries, listen, we want to go here and take out this place. We're getting 80% of your cocaine from Colombia, just an example, right? So why not go to Colombia and head it off at the pass? Why sit there, wait till it gets here, and blame some kid who, listen, I'm not making excuses for people selling for drugs, but this kid saw the movie Scarface and thinks, oh, I'm going to make it that way too. You head it off at the pass. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, when you got the positions that our federal government takes on it, thanks to WikiLeaks, we were able to find out that we own and control the poppy fields in Afghanistan, and basically we let the sale of opium happen right under our noses. They're very well aware of it. They're not doing anything to stop it. So I don't know how we can head it off at the pass when the people in power are, actively contributing into that problem. We got to find another way, to reach people at home, before they get to the drug situation. I think that also comes from giving people opportunity. If you can give people opportunity and jobs and careers and stuff, there's still people in business that have drug problems, but they're not out in the street dealing drugs if they've got a good career to go to every day. I got Dan on the phone. I want to get Dan's comment, and then we'll go back and talk to Jason and Eric again. Dan, are you on the air? You're on the air.
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you fine. Yeah, I was just going to comment that it seems to me that as far as minorities go and having problems with just getting them out of poverty or getting them employed, that this has already got a solution to it, and it comes from history. There's been lots of other minorities, whether they were the Italian immigrants or the Irish immigrants that came in, that established themselves by creating businessmen's association, cultural associations, and kept their money flow within their own community and built up from there. And it strikes me odd that the minorities that are continuously having generational problems years after years after years haven't done this, haven't done what the other minorities have done to get out of that kind of a situation. It seems that our biggest lessons to be learned are things that we should have learned from history.
Well, I go back to what I was saying before about the Democrats pandering to the black vote. So you look at what other minorities have done. Chinese immigrants have come here and started up businesses, and other races, other immigrants have moved here. They didn't receive the level of pandering that the Democrats do to the black community. They didn't have the slavery, and they didn't have the KKK so much, but they also didn't get the amount of pandering in the handout that the Democrats do. Like I said before, you show me a ghetto.
Up here in Canada, that's exactly what happened. We had slaves up here in Canada. People don't realize that. They were Chinese slaves, right? And they did receive a lot of pandering. But they did create their own cultural centers. They did create their own businessmen's associations. And they did create their own communities, Chinatown, for example, inside the city of Vancouver. And they did drag themselves out of poverty. Right? It can be done, but it takes a community effort. And it seems to me that the minorities in the States that are currently having generational problems have been voting for the Democrats for generations, and they're still poor. You know, it doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't work. You got to do it yourself.
Tom, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Who's talking?
This is Eric.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Another thing that's a culturally interesting thing that I think, he kind of brought up is when it comes to American blacks, and let's just compare them to just American whites. Whites will usually get into some kind of business relationship and will normally, kind of trust to a certain level until a problem develops. Blacks will wait and not trust from the beginning, and even before a problem is apparent, and then they will wait to see if trust is warranted. So it's almost the opposite. And in the Asian communities who have built themselves up by sharing, resources, they're in a position where they trust each other as long as, and trust until trust is not warranted. So basically, with the black community, there is a lack of trust. There's always a feeling that somebody's running the con, that you're going to get ripped off, you're going to get bamboozled. So they do not get into the associations because basically they're just saying, hey, I'm not going to let this black man rip me off. I remember when I was doing, wedding videos, and I told the lady that I was black, and she said, oh, no, I'm not going to hire you. You probably wanted some kind of con. I'm going to the white man because I know at least I'll get my money for it. It's that kind of trust that's killing us, and I don't know how to fix it.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were saying in... Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, the old wounds and pouring salt on the old wounds. I think that those wounds have never had a chance to heal, and so that's where that mistrust comes from. And I think, like we talked about also, that happens it happens in school. The kids are learning in school, hey, the white man did this to you. This is why you got the problems you have. It's the white man's fault for it, and you need the government's help. And so, if you're someone who's black, you're going to hear that and saying, oh, the white guy is the cause of my problem, and I need government to help me. If you're the white guy, if you're the white kids in school, then, it's sounding to you like you're being shamed for being white, and so you never really want to build the actual trust. That you get what I'm saying? On both sides are hearing a different thing, and they're never reaching across and building that trust.
And there's one more thing, too. Back in the slave days, there was a two-tiered type slave. You had the field slaves and you had the house slaves. And the job of the house slaves was not only to take care of the master in the house, but also be the eyes and ears to find out if there was a dissension between the field slaves. So they ratted them out. That was kind of the untrustworthy thing. So that's how we black Republicans are looked at, almost like the house slaves, that we're going to rat everybody out to the white man. We're going to snitch. So that whole thing, that whole distrust thing was kind of, some of it was left over from slavery.
So I wonder how we can, we talked about, hitting this off in the schools and taking back the schools. How can we do this? I know, we talked about, on the phone conversation I had with you yesterday about, our down ticket candidates and doing it through the political avenues by getting conservatives and libertarians elected at the local level in the city councils and in the mayor's office. Now that's, could be possible where it's a pretty much 50-50 split, battleground cities where it's half conservative, half liberal. But what about in these areas where it's like 70 or 80 or 90% liberal? How can we take back our local governments in those areas so that we can take back the schools? Because I think the only way we can take back the schools is through the elected offices.
Start with the PTA.
The elected offices. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would start with the PTA, Parent Teachers Associations. They're the ones that control the school board, and that's all elected, isn't it? That's where you have to start. If you're going to start changing a society, you do have to start with the education level. That's what the communists and the socialists did to us. So you just take their agenda and you just do it backwards.
Even in the PTA, yeah, you could be actively involved, but if you're conservative or libertarian in a community and where 70% of people are, voting straight party tickets for the liberals, how does your voice overcome everybody else's voice in that PTA conversation? Typically kick people out like that to speak up.
Simple. Be honest, because people, generally speaking, on an individual level, still have a sense of common sense. So as long as you're being honest and you're being straight up about what you're talking about, right? Then they'll recognize the difference between double talk and political speech and just a guy who wants to get things done. There's a difference. And if they don't recognize that, then it's time to vote with your feet and move.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's another thing. We also know that the teachers' unions lean heavily on the Democratic Party. It's almost like they have if they're blankie or something like that. They get a lot of financial support. We need, as Republicans, to go in and steal the teachers' union from the Democratic Party. Take that hold, that iron fist hold they have on the teachers' union, and then turn them around so that we can not only get that socialism out of the schools, but also my goal is to eventually get God back into the school. We're missing a lot of that.
Yeah, I agree.
One way to do that is that the teachers' unions make investments for the retirements, and the retirement investments are pretty much capitalistic. Right? So getting the Republicans involved on that end of it is the best way into the union. And the other thing you got to realize is that a lot of unions in North America are doing what they call union or contract splitting. So the newest teacher into this teachers union gets a different contract than somebody that's been there for 20 years, right? And that's really a division within the union itself. And as Republicans or libertarians, you can fight that, saying everybody should be treated equally regardless of how long they've been in. And that would be another way to back them up, right, which is something they desperately need, right? And if you do that, that'll get you into the PTA and start getting control of the school boards.
So we got about 10 minutes left on the show, and we talked about the problems. We talked about how we could take back the schools and the local down ticket positions. But let's say we can get a voice in the schools. Let's say we can find leaders in some of these poor communities to start up meetup groups. Because I think that's where it's going to really happen, is by having the local meetups and bringing in people that want to learn how to become successful and start their own businesses, get a career, maybe even just learning how to fill out a resume would be great for a lot of people. So let's say we can get these groups started. What should be discussed at these groups? How can we Because like I said, if you build it, they'll come. If you start a meetup and group that, and you advertise it in the community saying, hey, this is a group for minorities to learn how to be successful, people are naturally going to start trickling in. Even if there's that mistrust, people will start trickling in to find out what the group is about. So let's say we get some people, maybe some people listening right now are interested in starting up a group in their area. What could those first meetups be about? I'd like to get Eric's opinion on that, and then I'll ask Jason.
Okay. First thing what I think needs to happen is once you get those people in there, even though you have an agenda, what you want to do, resume writing or any other thing that you have, the first thing you should do is address the crowd that's there, the minorities that's there, and ask them, hey, what are you looking for out of this? What can we do for you? Have them say something that will invest them in the process and not have you just dictating to them what's going to happen. And you might find that you will be able to just give what you intended to give them, but basically it's going to be received a lot better because you asked them what they need.
That's an absolute must. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go to Jason. I'll get Jason's comment on starting meetup groups. What should those first meetings be about?
I'm sorry. I think the first meetings should be about, and here's another problem I've seen in a couple of these help organizations. You can't make it about color. I understand that you want to get minorities into it, but once you get them into that door, it should no longer be about color. It should be about personal responsibility. It should be getting them to that point where they want to take personal responsibility, and not because I've sat through a couple of these workshops in the past, and the first thing out of the guy's mouth is you're black and you're gonna make it above the white guy and white people this and white people and it can't be about that anymore, because that puts a wedge even further apart in the racial division. So the first meeting should always be about the person and like Eric said, what they want to accomplish, and throw the whole race thing out the window, because I think we are running into bigger problems when everything is black and white. If you just run it as a human organization, if you just look at the person and go, listen, what do you want to accomplish? Oh, yeah? Okay, so now we're going to help you accomplish this. And we're never going to sit there and go, well, the white man wants you to fail, and the white man laughs when you fail. It can't be about that. It has to be about the person.
I talked about Eric yesterday on the phone about, which was a term new to me a couple of years ago. I'd never heard it before, and I'm a white guy, is this term white privilege. Apparently that seems to be the big thing that's being taught in colleges and stuff, and I didn't even know about it. And it seems to be the term that the left has really latched on to try to win over voters by, in my mind, it seems like they're white shaming people for being white and the privilege that they have. They'll always say, check your white privilege, check your white privilege. I see that on blog posts, on the radio all the time, but they never say, tell us what we're supposed to do about it. I get in this discussion on social media and someone will say, check your white privilege, and I'll go, okay, well, if I got this white privilege, why don't you tell me what I'm supposed to do about it? As a white guy, As a white guy, I understand the problems that black people face. I understand our history. I mean, I don't understand it from the shoes of a black person, but I know there's a problem there. Okay, I understand that. Okay, but the left never offers a solution on what we're supposed to do about this white privilege thing. Personally, I don't like that term because it brings race into it rather than the socioeconomic status that brought about these problems. It doesn't address how the problems got started, because if they started addressing how those problems got started, they'd have to start pointing the finger at their own party. The Democratic Party has never apologized as a party for their history of oppression. I think we need to refocus, and I think we need to steal that dialogue away from the left and rebrand it as a different term that's not attached to race. I don't know what we would call it. minority disadvantage or whatever we can call it that doesn't have race attached to it, that says, hey, there's a problem in society, we need to address it, we need to fix it. It's not caused by race, but it is caused by socioeconomic status. That, hey, it was the Democratic Party, I believe, that led us down this path, and what can we do to fix about it? You guys got, either one of you, Eric or Jason, how we could rebrand that to a term that doesn't have race attached to it so that we can work together, both races work together to fix that? We've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes, guys.
Okay, it's a socioeconomic thing. It's not really white privilege as they're trying to put on all white people. Basically, socioeconomic, if you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, whether you're Donald Trump's kids or whether you're Magic Johnson's kids, basically you're going to have privilege over a lot of people that are black or white, because, see, a lot of white people, like my wife, for instance, she had to wear hand-me-downs. I didn't as a kid. I got everything new. And I'm a black man, so, that's not a privilege for her. Another thing is, this thing about black people thinking that white people are just going out of their way to do for other white people. White people seem to be some of the most individualistic people that I've run into. They don't have some secret society where they're giving whites a certain kind of break and then blacks another. I think it's a myth.
Are you there, Eric? Did we lose you?
Yeah, I'm still there. Did you hear me?
Yeah. We got less than a minute. Jason, if you could, do you have contact information that you can give out publicly, or if anybody's got a question about starting a meetup group?
Yes, they could contact me at jason@nycpreppers.com.
Jason@nycpreppers.com. I want to thank you guys for coming on air. Great discussion. I wish we had more time to finish it and bring on more callers. I apologize to those of you that didn't get to make it on. I do want to remind everyone that we have shows on Prepper Broadcasting every day live. Tomorrow will be Herbal Prepper at 4 p.m. Pacific. That's 8 p.m., I believe, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, everyone, for coming on Golf Strike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bankland, Federation of Bankland, the Republic of Bankland, United States of Bankland, United Kingdom of Bankland. Parasite, a smart parasite, a real smart parasite, keeps its host alive. Times are bad and times are hard, and minus cash, my way is barred and treated like some retard strapped to a suicide credit card. Mr. Banker, can't you see?
Today's broadcast has come to you through the courtesy of the Prepper Broadcasting Network. See our hosts, show schedules, archived programs, and more at prepperbroadcasting.com. Thanks for listening.